Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of For the Record. And today we're kind of going glam. I hate to say that, but we have on with us today one of the most fabulous humans I have ever known, the best hair in the game, a physician associate from Fort Lauderdale, the owner of Icon Aesthetics and Wellness. About 8 years in the game, doing things very differently. He is, just fun, different, has his own personality, his own, beats his own drum. Does beautiful work, by the way, on top of everything else that he's doing, has a great social media presence, a great website, really understands branding and marketing, and runs a damn good clinic. So I am thrilled today to welcome one of our Aesthetic Next Generation Leaders nominees, Needle Daddy, Chad Van Horn. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's so funny, I didn't even know your first name for like the first year. I was like, who is this Needle Daddy and who is he? But I met you and I was like, instantly I fell in love with you. You're fabulous. And you're doing things very differently. You've got this whole sort of pain-free idea, beauty, artistry, also meets medicine. Like, I just love your whole vibe. So take us through a little bit about your story and how you ended up here in aesthetics.
Yeah, I'm nothing if not a good time. So I was late to the game. I was a the medical profession in general was kind of a second career move for me following the great housing crash of '07, '08 when I was back working in flooring sales, selling carpet, tile, and hardwood. And then I kind of just made the executive decision to take a step back, to take two steps forward. And I was like, well, I could either go look for my next job, or maybe I could think about investing in a more recession-proof career path. And so my original intention was to become a physical therapist. And then by the end of that program, I ended up switching into the PA route, kind of by way of orthopedics. Thought I was going to end up in orthopedics. And then by the time that I got to the end of my PA school, I was like, well, you know what I really like doing is hands-on procedures, but also not having to show up to the OR at like 6 a.m. or take, weekend trauma call. I didn't really want to work like nights, weekends, holidays. I had a young daughter by that point, and so I knew I didn't want to end up in like high acuity, like ER or trauma, because the day that they wheel in a little blonde girl on that stretcher would probably be my last day in the office. I'd do what needed to be done, and then you'd find me curled up in the fetal position in the corner, bawling my eyes out. So I wanted something that was, I sort of selfishly insulated myself from that. And, God bless the people who are out there working in those specialties, because we need you. We can't all be, you know, sticking Botox in people's faces. But so I ended up right at the end of my program, I was peppering my resume all around town, and then was trying to get on with dermatology clinics. Couldn't find anybody that was either hiring or willing to train a new injector. And I happened to find this very obscure random job listing on an online job board. It was like Indeed.com. And so I phoned them up and just inquired more about it. And long story short, ended up working at a little tiny rinky-dink IV clinic that was about 2 years in business. And that was all they were doing at the time was IVs and B12 shots. And they're like, we want a full-time practitioner to come on and do Botox and fillers, hormone replacement therapy, testosterone, review lab work, this very comprehensive lab panel where we would assess for vitamin deficiencies and look for autoimmune markers and things like that, almost using it as like number one, a screening tool, and then number two, a diagnostic selling tool, just to recommend people into specific programs that would be well suited for them. And then they also were doing like medically assisted weight loss and Botox and fillers. So he's running off this job description to me. I'm like, well, I don't know how to do any of those things, but I do know how to talk to people. I am comfortable in a cash-based medicine model because I came out of sales and, writing up estimates for people. So that part of it wasn't entirely unfamiliar to me. And it just proved to be a really fun job. I was there for close to 4 years. I took them from about 15 to 25K a month in just IVs. Within 3 years, we were doing 10x that number. And so the nice part was that I was actually part of my compensation was off the top of the entire pie. So my first year when I was there, I probably made less money than my entire PA class, but by year three, I probably made more money than all of them. So we parted ways because they were heavy on the quantity versus quality. They started to list almost all their services on Groupon, and that just became taxing to the soul. I don't know if you've dealt with those people, but they were nickel and diming me because now Groupon also has like their almost like Amazon Prime style membership, where now you're not only paying like a slashed green price, you're paying a double slashed red price. And I'm just like, I think I'm paying you to inject this Botox into your face at this point. So we ended up parting ways, and then I opened up for myself. I've been in business now for 3 years, and now my focus is more on, comprehensive rejuvenation. I focus more on quality. I'm able to spend more time and see less clients, charge a higher price point in order to do good quality work. And then I still maintain, I'd say my business at this point is probably 75% aesthetics, 25% hormones and weight loss. I don't even really advertise the hormones and weight loss that much just because I don't have the infrastructure to handle super high volume of clientele. And I'm a bleeding heart for every single one of my clients. Almost all of them have my cell phone number, and, they'll text me all hours of the the week, the weekend, and hey, I'm ready for my refill, or I'm feeling this kind of way or that kind of way. And it's you really got to kind of hold their hand through it, and they appreciate it when you do because not everybody's willing to do that.
Well, so a couple things there, Chad. Most people don't decide to go back to school, to PA school, after having a career. You're my second one. Sarah Balderas had a similar story. She was in financial planning, went back. So that's like a pretty hard choice. It's not going to, like sort of the RN bridge. It's like we're going to go to full PA school. So that's a huge deal. But I think because you came from sales, I look at your branding, your website, how you conduct yourself in public, like how you sort of attract a crowd around you, how you talk about things on Instagram, and you are a salesman, and not in a bad way. Like you have showmanship is the word I would use. You have a lot of showmanship. I feel like I'm watching a show when you're around. I think that's a very hard thing for people to learn in aesthetics. Like if they come from a true medical background, that kind of comes last. Excuse me. So thinking about your own career, like what does that mean for you? Like how do you teach someone that? And that's, I think, the biggest gap for a lot of practitioners. They can't sell because they can't show. It's like, are you a shower or a grower? Sorry, that's a bit of a dirty joke, but how do you teach someone that? How do you do their Instagram? How do you get their personality to come out? How do you make them be like you and sort of have this larger than life persona, but still also be really, really good at their job and be a phenomenal medical provider as well?
So I think you could probably look at it from two different standpoints. Number one, you need to reach a point of personal development where you kind of have a pretty firm grasp on who you are as a person and what your identity is. And one of my biggest pieces of advice is for people to double down on their personality quirks. You know what I mean? And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is it doesn't suit you to try to become somebody else because it's always going to be disingenuous. It's not going to be a representation of who you really are. I mean, let's take the series The Office. I'm sure you saw The Office, right?
I love The Office. Love it.
Great show. And if you survey the entire cast of characters, they were all funny for completely different reasons, right? Like Dwight Schrute versus Jim Halpert, versus, all the other guys that were there, Michael Scott, for example. Like they all had very unique, distinct personalities and reasons why we thought they were funny. And so I think one of the best things that somebody can do is really know thyself, right? Take the personality test, take the Ingram, take the Myers-Briggs, the 16 personalities, and really kind of figure out who you are. And when you do it, when you answer those tests and you're honest with yourself, like it gives you back a pretty scary, accurate picture of what your tendencies are when it comes to professional settings, friendships, romantic relationships, strengths and weaknesses, that type of thing. So I think getting to a point of personal development where you have, that pretty good sense of who you are as a person is going to make you feel comfortable in your own skin. And when you feel comfortable in your own skin, you're going to emanate that energy to somebody else. Like people love to be around somebody who has good energy. They gravitate towards it. It's like, I'm not to get like too mystical about it or anything, but I very much buy into the idea that you as a person can influence an interaction as well as like an immediate environment, whether positively or negatively. And I happen to choose positive, right? Because nobody wants to be a wet blanket. Nobody wants to be around the wet blanket. So then you take that person who knows who they are, and then you put them in a professional setting, and they're going to sound more confident. And then you have the skill set, right? You have to know the skill set. And I don't care who you are, if you're new in the game, it's going to take you a solid year before you feel like you're not faking your ass off, right? A year of just pure fake it till you make it. And the beautiful thing is, as soon as you put the white coat on, they just assume that you know everything there is to know about medicine across any and every specialty. So use that to your advantage. Have a couple talking points when it comes to the questions that you know you're going to be asked. Educate yourself, get the product knowledge down, and you know the more that you do that, it takes 1 year to not feel like you're faking. It takes 3 years to build a following, build a clientele, build a social media presence. So you also have to be willing to play the long game. Don't look for the quick fix. Don't go buy your fake followers on Instagram or whatever. Because it's going to take 3 years. It's going to take 3 years. I mean, that's about when I can say Needle Daddy as a character or a concept was ideated, created, and I'm just now to the point where I'm showing up to conferences like the Aesthetic Next, and I've got 5 to 10 people coming up to me and just being like, "I follow your shit, man. I love it. Keep doing it." And I've never seen them before in my life, and I love that. I'm like, I got to call my mom and tell her I made it.
Well, and I will tell you, this is the part of you that when I instantly thought, I got to know this guy. We're at Aesthetic Next 5.0 last year. We're at the Beneb party the last day, and we're all dancing, looking like a bunch of crazy folks with our crazy wigs. I had a wig on, outlandish outfits, and you're in this like full on bodysuit. And I thought to myself, here's a guy who knows who in the hell he is. Like you're out there having a blast. Like you were emanating fun. Like you were having so much fun. You looked, I mean, because it was so ridiculous, it looked awesome. And you were just enjoying the moment. And people were like dying to get on the dance floor with you. Like they were bum rushing the dance floor to be with you and dance with you because it was like, I want to be that guy. I want to be that confident, have that much fun, look like that, have that energy. So I think what you say is it's very, very true. Like you attract, we always say your vibe attracts your tribe. And I think it's true. Like you tend to kind of walk around with this fun air about you. I mean, serious, obviously, and again, very medically competent and all that, but fun. And you make things seem fun. I'm sure patients feel that as well. It's like, how do they adjust to that? And how do you bring that needle daddy vibe and all the fun into your practice so that it's not too much, right? It doesn't become like cheeky, but it's enough to get the patients that you want to come in the front door.
Yeah. So I mean, I've always kind of found it not super difficult to connect with people. It's really just about being willing to sit down, look them in the eye, answer their questions, address their concerns, take a few minutes before you start coming at them with a needle, take a few minutes to hear them out before you start imposing your beauty ideals or your recommendations on what they really need versus what they're telling you that they need. Because if you give them what they really need, but don't actually give them the thing that they asked for, they're still going to be unhappy with you at the end of it. So you have to kind of be willing to compromise with them and not just, come in and draw hard lines in the sand. But really, it's just about getting to know them as a person. Treat them like a person, not a client, because everybody's got a story. Some people are doing it for the first time and they're terrified. They don't know what it's going to feel like. They don't know what their results are going to be like. And so if it's a first time client, really, I spend an ample amount of time just getting them over that initial hump and just letting them know like, hey, I'm here for you. Like we're going to do this together. These are all the things that I'm going to do for you to give you as comfortable an experience as we possibly can, right? So I try to do that. You ask genuine questions, try to get to know them. Everybody's got a family, they've got a backstory, they've got a career, they've got things that make them happy, they got things that they're stressed and scared about. And just building that rapport has saved me so many times, even if I gave them a less than ideal outcome, right? If you if you give them a less than ideal outcome and they didn't like you, that's a stone cold recipe for a 1-star review, right? And nobody wants the 1-star review. So at the very least, even if you mess it up royally, if they still like you at the end of it and you were willing to walk them through those things, walk them through their concerns, bring them back for as many follow-up appointments. I mean, I've got one client right now who, and I actually heard a lecture about at, I think it was at the next conference, talking about the differences in cultures. And I've got this client, and I want to say she's Jamaican or she's from the islands or whatnot. And she just got, a decent amount of work done, dropped a pretty penny with me, and has just been getting ridiculed by her friends and family over it. Not because the work looks bad, just because of the fact that she got stuff done, right? And in that particular culture, it's not quite as readily accepted as it is in other cultures. And so I didn't forecast that. I didn't foresee that. And so now I'm having to, you know, very gently hold her hand, give her all the reassurance in the world, and be willing to spot dissolve some really great work, actually, in order to kind of temper the results versus, what she's hearing from people around her. And granted, this is a person who, going back to the whole, being secure in who you are, she's not really secure in who she is. She's recently out of a serious relationship. She's kind of lost in the ether, trying to find her way. So she might be doing some treatments as a form of therapy, as as clients sometimes do. And so I misjudged that one completely, right? But the fact that I'm willing to walk with her and hold her hand and just be with her during that experience and be patient, it goes a long way, right? And so you gotta be willing to meet people where they're at, and when you do that, they will stick with you. They won't go somewhere else because not everybody's given them that experience.
Well, I think you mentioned a few things there that are my TED Talk, my hot buttons about if you give them what they want, they're happy. Even if you give them all the things that they need and they look amazing, it's like the little line between their brows. If you go in and give them a full face correction, you give them toxin, they look like a freaking $1 million. But that little bitty line's still there. You've not satisfied them, right? You've not done the job. And no matter how great you are at what you do, that little thing that brought them in, that little nuanced issue that you don't even freaking see because it's not a big deal to you, is like that was their litmus test, right? If you passed or failed for them, and you've got to kind of, to your point, put your ego aside and say, damn it, that little bitty line that means nothing, I will fix it. Like, let's just get it done and move on. It's like in my business, people complain about little things. I'm like, guys, at the end of the day, the client may be completely wrong, but the fact you have to deal with it, if you don't just do it and be done with it, it's like way more time and energy on your part. Just get it done. So I think we do have people who have a hard line in the sand. What you said, Chad, they're like, nope, we're not doing it. It's not important. We're not going to, we're not going to play with that. Just freaking do it. And the second thing is you've got to be willing to dissolve really great work, because if you've ever had a bad haircut and you look at the beautician or the salon person, she's like, oh, you look great. And you're like, oh my God, I look like a freaking train wreck. In her mind, you are amazing. In your mind, you are a train wreck. Like, we have no idea the perception of beauty that we have versus what they have versus their friends and family. And I think even when you have an amazing result, I had a girl here that actually works for us. She had her lips dissolved on Monday from the conference. I thought they looked amazing. Big, plump, juicy. She's like, I hated them. I dissolved all of it. In my mind, they were incredible. Her injector thought they were incredible. She hated it because the lips that I would want, she didn't want. So I think we never know. And I think there's a part of it where you've got to be, to what you said, in a sense, kind of a servant to the person in front of you, like what they need, what they want, what their desires are, and not always forecast or project onto them what you want. Because sometimes we have a bit of a different ideal of beauty. And you are a man, a straight man in the aesthetics environment, which again, I think a person in the chair, a female in the chair, hearing a man tell her all the things that are wrong with her face could become very off-putting and almost like a shameful kind of thing. It would be for me, at least. How do you manage that? I know that you're super sweet and delicate, but there's got to be something there. I think with females as your primary patient load, you're a straight man, you're in the chair saying, yep, sister, you're getting old, your face is falling off. Like, how do you handle that conversation? Because I feel like that's one of the big blockers for men as they come into this industry.
It's true. It's true. I am very much straight. That being said, I am a proud card-carrying metrosexual. So I'm as gay as it gets without actually being gay. So I I've always had because I'm a natural creative type. I grew up in a musical family. I've always been artistic. I take dope photos. Um, so I've always been fussy with with my clothes. I've always had just a natural ability to put an outfit together. I've always been fussy about my hair, which in the beginning, I used to feel bad about myself, going back to the whole like know thyself. I used to feel bad because or guilty because it was coming from I thought it was kind of coming from like a place of vanity and conceit. Like, oh, I'm just so into myself that like my hair has to look perfect all the time. And then like as I got older and matured a little bit, what I realized about myself was that it's actually an artistic expression of who I am. Just like if I play a song on a musical instrument or something like that. Because I'll be as fussy about it if I'm home by myself with nobody else around. I mean, obviously, if there's people around, it's going to be even more so. But um, if I catch myself in the mirror and it doesn't look right, I will sit there until it looks right. Do you know what I mean? So all that to say, I think that my opinion as a straight male probably carries a little bit more weight than, some guy who just looks like he has no care and concern for his personal appearance. And I'm always amazed at how much of that I see in our industry. Like anytime you go to one of these conferences next or otherwise, I call it the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's like, oh, this one has nothing done at all. This one has way too much. And this one is just right. You know what I mean? And so I think you got to try to shoot for that middle ground, that just right. Like if you're working in this industry, you have to have tried the treatments for yourself. If you look like you've done nothing at all, I don't think people are going to take you quite as seriously. I mean, I'll never forget one of my last lectures I ever had in my PA program, which I believe was sponsored by the American Heart Association. It was a cardiology-based lecture. And the guy who was up there giving the lecture looked like he was in the middle of having an acute myocardial infarction, a heart attack on the platform. I mean, he was overweight, uh, just sweating profusely, right? And I think you have to be, I think you, to some extent, I'm not saying you have to be like, look like a model at all times, but like you have to represent our industry through yourself, right? Like have a professional presentation, appearance, have a care. Aesthetics goes beyond needles, right? I mean, you could do the absolute best work, but if some girl's eyebrows are all jacked up to the nines, or she's got like those like super thin old school chola stencils, um, you're not going to make her look more attractive because she's already got things that are detracting from that. And I'm not saying you got to bring those up, but I guess going back to your original question, the way that I approach it is to qualify it and say, I know, you know, coming for what it's worth from a straight male's perspective. And most guys don't even really cue into it. They don't notice when their girl has had their lashes done or she just got her roots touched up or whatever, the balayage or the ombre. I know those things because I'm a married male, and so I deal with them with my own wife. I and I'm in the industry, and so I it does interest me. I guess what I'm saying is you do have to tread lightly, but they do also value my opinion as a male because it might be different than what they're getting from all of their friends, right? And some of them might only have the opportunity to ask a male's opinion of the guy that they're dating, or maybe somebody who's in their circle of friends, or maybe their gay bestie or whoever that they have. And so I would say that there is a healthy percentage of my clients who do actually value and respect my opinion and as specifically as a male, versus a female, because, sometimes we're looking at things in a different viewpoint.
I think there's a part of it where a man doing it, that's kind of removed. Like you don't have a dog in the fight, right? You're not my bestie competing with me for guys at the bar. We're not trying to look in our mom group and see who looks the youngest, who looks the best. Like I think your opinion is kind of unadulterated. You're not in the fight with me, and so I think there's a part of it where it's probably refreshing for someone who's not in your group to say, I think objectively this is where we could make you look younger, more fresh, whatever the thing is that they're looking for. So I had Chris Cotto on, who I know you know. I don't know, last season he had the same kind of thing. He's like, listen, I think it's an advantage because I have a sort of a non-biased opinion about it. I'm not a female. I don't have the same. I don't live your life, but I can look at you and tell you what I think. And it sounds different coming from me. But what you mentioned about the cardiology lecture at Aesthetic Next this year, I look around and I think the same kind of thing. Chad, I'm like, our business card in this industry is our face, and our brand is what we wear, our hair, the package, right? The package deal. Just like your practice has a brand package, we are a brand package. And have a point of view. Like I look at people and think, are you a wallflower? Like you're in an industry that demands of you to be loud and upfront and in people's faces. Like to survive here, you got to be. Look at Subio, right? You yell the loudest, you get the most stage time, and you may not want that, and that's fine. But you have to have a point of view, and you have to look the part if you want to get ahead. And whether or not that's fair or not fair, or that's I don't know what the words are for that. You could be a great practitioner, but if you don't have that part done, you will get overlooked here because someone else who has that look and that point of view and that voice, a manufacturer wants them on stage, a conference wants them on stage, people want to be around them on the dance floor. They will just attract a different amount of energy than you will if you don't have that. So I agree with you. It's not vain. It's just business. Like at the end of the day, it's just, vanity for us is like kind of our survival mode here in aesthetics. We don't have a choice. But I think it brings up some points about just the industry has a lot of things right now that are happening. And by the way, I got my roots done for you last night. I thought I will go get my hair dyed for Chad so it looks good. I don't want him to be judging me thinking I'm hideous. But, because you are in South Florida, you see all the different ethnicities. You see, we've been to Benev things together. You're at conferences. You're kind of seeing everything out there, the smorgasbord of chaos of aesthetics. What is your perspective right now? Like looking at it from that lens, and because you've been in a different career first and you've kind of had a whole different corporate America environment, what is as you wrote this morning, what's your hot take? Like, how do you see the aesthetics changing, morphing for good or for bad? Where it's at today, and where should we be if we were doing the right things according to you?
Um, I think the things we're doing right are when it comes to the fundamentals, I think we're saying a lot of the same things and we're delivering consistent messaging. Um, I th Products are constantly evolving. I love the trends towards regenerative aesthetics, and not having to, stuff a face full of HA like we used to. So I love biostimulators. I love all of the polynucleotide stuff that's coming to the fore, the exosomes. I love it because, I've been doing hormone replacement therapy and peptide therapy for since I got into this game, and those are largely meant to be um, anti-aging as well, right? Putting a band-aid over it or giving it the appearance of this and that. So I think I love the innovation of some of the companies out here. And some of them are I think some of the bigger ones need to kind of get a little bit more creative and a little bit more bold and brave versus just like let's like even more cross-linking in this particular product or less crossing or whatever. Um, but I love the trends and the rumors that I hear about, combo products like HA plus PLLA or HA plus calcium hydroxylapatite. Um, I love that stuff. I think where there's also a lot of noise, and it can get completely overwhelming. And I remember, going to conferences in my like first, second, third year, I would be, stopping by every booth because everything was like a shiny new toy. I was like, oh, who are you guys and what do you do? What do you have? Oh, can I have your samples? Not knowing that they're gonna scan your badge and then come knocking on your door and like, you ready to make an order? You ready to make an order? You ready to make an order? Like, I don't. Oh my God, like you got to choose your products and you got to kind of choose your team a little bit. So going back to what you were saying, I think where we could definitely stand to improve is on the things that are still viewed as controversial. Um, take an area like under eye filler, for example. I think you put 10 injectors up on a stage on a group panel, expert panel, what have you. They're going to give 10 different answers about how to do it and how to do it. Are you going to use HA filler? Are you going to use PRF? Are you going to use devices? Are you going to use all of those things, you know? So I think we need more studies. I think we need more research in this industry. There's a lot of just winging it. It's kind of the wild, wild west. I know the products are the ones that get the studies, but in terms of standards of care and best practices, I don't really think we have any. I think we need, I think we need more, tightly controlled, double-blinded, placebo-controlled type stuff on how we do certain things. I love guys like Subio, how he will, just brush aside the noise and boil it down to the brass tacks and I think we need more of that. I think we need to find um, a little bit more consistency across standards of care and best practices because, like I said, there's just so many different people doing it in a completely different way. And it's confusing. It can be confusing and overwhelming to clients, right? And the unfortunate reality is there is sometimes tend to arrive at the right answer. Um, but what if there's a way, what if there's a best way out of those 10 ways to do it that is actually a more effective result that could potentially save us both time and money? We would want to do it that way, right? So that's where I think we could definitely stand to improve as an industry, just with, improving standards of care with actual like peer-reviewed evidence.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that about products getting studies because people get them all the time. So, just for those who are listening, you can do an IIT, an investigator initiated trial, send a note to a manufacturer with a proposal, what you think the data collection would look like, and they will fund it for you. They'll give you money to do it. They'll also give you product because they can't do it, right? It's off label. They can't do anything off label, so they'll fund you to do it. And those journals are all dying for content, right? No one wants to read a journal that's all manufacturer provided data. Like it's just not very compelling. As you know, we get that for free. If you're in an office, you get, all of the leave behinds and the takeaways and the iPads showing you in the hallway and all the things. That's not really relevant for us at this point. We can find all that data. But like a Danny Suarez doing the whole lip thing he just did with Alexis, or we mentioned like what Larry's doing, to have legitimate studies in your practice, first of all, it's not that hard, right? You see patients every day. If you see 15 toxin patients today, you could try a different technique on 8 out of 15 and compare results. Like I think what you just mentioned is this is like what we as an industry are not doing well. We're not showing any research to back what we say is the best method on podium. No one is talking about what they did wrong to get to the right answer. Because I think that's part of it too, is to say, I did it this way for a long time, had these results, thought, my gosh, this is not what I want to do. Let me try something different. And then voila, this new thing was born. I think what Subio does so well is he's always talking about the amount of cases he's seen, what he's done that didn't work, what he did, that did work. He's very vulnerable about it. And I think you have to kind of admit your faults to kind of have research as your, in your back pocket. But I think, Chad, where the gap is, this is where I think the real gap is when you publish a study, you have to show your technique. You have to show all the details about how you got the result. The technique, all the way down to like skin prep, post-massage. You have to kind of take the curtain back and show all the details. And for some reason in this industry, people are so concerned about their proprietary techniques. Like people, it's a needle in the face. It ain't that special. Like any of it, it's all mathematics, right? It's all physics, it's geometry, it's angles. Give anybody long enough to work on it or look at it, they'll figure it out themselves. Make it easy on people. Establish a protocol. Establish some base guidelines to what you mentioned that say, anytime you do this thing, the best approach is this based on, hundreds of cases I've done, these results, safety numbers, equal X. There's no vascular occlusions, blah, blah, whatever it is. But we just don't do it here. And I think from a conference perspective, like for me as a director, I love someone who has data, who can give me like an N of 15, an N of 100. They have a pre and post procedure protocol. How did they do the study? What was it? Double blinded, not double blinded? They give me good data. And I think on stage, you can make that really fun and interesting. And then people have a real reason to believe what you're saying and not just because you were, on Instagram saying that this is how you should do it. I think, yeah, I agree with you. That's a huge gap for us. And I think all of us should go be doing IITs every day. Go do your proposal, get some money, get some funding, and go do a study. That's my TED Talk.
As long as I can still trademark my proprietary Tiffany lip technique and charge you $5,000 to come take my training course.
Yes, please do. Well, and I think the part of that too, to the proprietary technique, is the technique itself is not that unique, right? Like it's not that compelling. I think Heather's 8 is a really cool technique, by the way. I think hers is actually really, 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 really novel. But the part of it I think that we also need to do here is the business part of it, like how to run the business correctly, how to think about what you mentioned, who's on your team, right? If I'm going to do the technique and I love this particular way to do it, do I use Belotero? Do I use Juvederm? Do I use what am I going to use for this thing? How do I decide what I'm going to pay for it? Do I charge my patient X, Y, or Z? There's a massive gap too in the business acumen here. So even if you're a great injector, your success eligibility in this industry is not any better off being good at what you do because you have to run a freaking business. Where does that come into play? As we're trying to share things as an industry, not just a hot take about technique, but how do we share good practices and get manufacturers and offices together to realize that we have to all make profit here, but we can't gouge each other and we have to really work in partnership together. Because that's, I think, a big issue right now. With obviously, we've had the Alley thing come out in the last 2 weeks. There's a big, like he said, she said, or an adversarial rub between offices and manufacturers. How do we solve that problem?
Yeah, that is a multifaceted, complex answer. I think it kind of depends on where you're coming from. I mean, I my take might be different than, somebody who is running a multi-location, super high volume practice. Like I run a very boutique operation similar to, Chris Cotto. I'm operating out of two salon suites right now. I'm actually, as we speak, I'm building out my new spot. It's going to be like 1,500 square feet and full lobby and like 4 treatment rooms. So that's my next move. But I have also operated for 3 years on a total shoestring budget. I've taken out no business loans. I have no financial partners. Um, so that forces me to be a little bit more judicious with the way that I spend my revenue. Um, and unless you have the capital to make super high volume orders across multiple vendors, you kind of have to choose your team a little bit. Kind of going back to like what I was saying a little bit earlier, you might have to say no to this vendor and yes to this vendor, and you're gonna step on some toes either way because most of the reps in this industry are really, really great people, and it's like I like you as a person. I just can't take on another product, or I can't make another order right now because I still have plenty of stock left, and I gotta go through it. So I don't. I mean, half the time I just feel like I'm working to pay off my next purchase order on my 90-day terms. You know what I mean? And hopefully it won't always be that way. But yeah, I think you kind of have to pick your team, and you're gonna hurt some feelings. There's no way around it because I don't think any practice out there is probably carrying all five neurotoxins at high volume or all four or five, filler lines in every SKU that there is. Maybe there are. I mean, if that's the case, I'm jealous of those people because their injectors get to basically just cherry pick what they want. But every now and again, I have to kind of make what I have work for me. And fortunately, I feel like I've done a good job of that. And my clients, it's rare for me to have clients come back and complain about the results over the long term. That's rare for me. So I think that's, where having good technique can definitely save you. Um, and does that answer the original
Yeah,
question?
yeah. I think good technique always saves you, but I think you make a valid point about people who have all the products are probably giant, right? They've had equity funding of some sort, private equity is involved. It's one of their big calling cards. If you come to our private equity group, we give you access to all the devices and all the products and all the things, which can be really compelling at that point if you're willing to give away your practice. But I think the counterpoint of that is what you mentioned of you've got to make a smart decision about what you're going to carry in your practice. And I think there is an art to that of knowing who is on your team. And to your point, if I'm working to pay off my 90-day terms, can they help me with my business growth? Can they help me with tools for the business? Can they help me with, looking at, market demographics or benchmarking, or can they come in and help me do a sales training with my team? Like, what are the things they're going to offer you besides just the product? Because again, product alone, they all have it, right? They all have some cross-link, to your point, or some cross-link filler. But what can they offer me beyond just the product? But I think the other part is what you said about being resourceful. Like you've learned to do what you need to do with what you have in your, in your kitty, in your piggy bank. And patients are happy. Like I don't think a patient, we are convinced they're all so particular about products and toxins and all these things. Did they really give a shit? Like if you're good at what you do and you're confident and you walk in saying, this is what I'm going to do for you, here's the outcome, what I'm going to use to do it's kind of my prerogative. I'm going to give you what I've told you I'm going to give you, and I'll figure out whatever we need to do to get there. I just don't think that patients, I mean, even for me, and I know better, I don't walk in and say, you're going to use this, this, and this. I'm like, you know what? You do you, boo. If I look good, I'm happy. Do you feel like patients care more now? It's like the whole TikTok generation, or is it like whatever Chad says, I'm doing it because I'm happy with his results?
I think you'll get both of those people. I mean, sometimes they'll come in having seen, a video on TikTok and then they'll send it to me on Instagram and be like, "Hey, can you do this for me?" And I'll tell them like that's either legitimate treatment and it's going to take this, and this, or I'll tell them that's actually all smoke and mirrors, actually. Um, but then I do have those clients who will follow me to the ends of the earth. They will show up with a blank check and just be like, make me pretty. Those are always our favorites. But to your point, I think as business owners, you have to kind of you have to play defense against some of these vendors because it seems like one of their favorite things to do is just talk absolute shit about each other, right? You take two vendors in a competing product line, and they will just you can tell you can see it happen. The switch happens in their eyes when they go from being a person to being a sales rep for their company. It's like the AI kicks in, and they go into like their talking points, and they just love to rag on the competition and tell you why their product is a superior product and some of them will back up their claims with actual clinical data, and some of them won't. You have to kind of, flex your science knowledge, your medical knowledge a little bit, and, kind of hold their feet to the fire as far as like mechanisms of action and like, does it actually do what you tell me that it's doing, right? And I usually stand behind the FDA. If the FDA has cleared it and approved it, and they've shown demonstrability that it does in fact do what we say it's going to do on the label, then I will put myself in front of the product. I will take the fire from the client, and then if it doesn't work for them, I'll turn around and go bitch to the rep and be like, "Hey, you said it was going to do this, and then it didn't. So now what are you going to do for me?" So you have to be willing to kind of, hold these companies accountable sometimes and make sure that they're going to hold good on their claims. And if they're in it for the right reasons, usually they'll take care of you because they've got a reputation to defend, just like we do as injectors.
Yeah, I was a sales rep for many years for Galderma, and I would tell my accounts like, get Zeaman this month because you need to keep your Radius price a certain price. I didn't have Radius, right? I had Galderma products, and we were like mixing and matching their whole bags. So they could keep prices with me, with their other vendors, because the business has to succeed. Like as a rep, I think we forget about that. If you're in the company, if Chad goes out of business, we're all screwed. Like our goal should be for Chad to be a great businessman and have lots of patients and lots of money. That should be the goal. I think even thinking about your patients too. If their perception is not Chad being successful long term, and it's about the Groupon and the gouging you and the driving you crazy, and it's like they're not the patient for you. Like if everyone's goal is not to be successful in this arena, it's got to be a win-win for everybody involved. It can't be a win for you and not for me. We have to all sort of win. And I think we're at a point in the industry right now. We have to kind of figure that out for ourselves to say, this can't be I win, so you have to lose. Like we have to sort of work together, symbiotically or in a kumbaya, if you will, so that we all work together to succeed. And I think right now the vendors are trying to kill each other, which is obviously impacting all of you because you're kind of caught in the crossfire of, this reward point system and this discount and this GPO and this person has this. And it's like, man, just give me what I need at a price I can afford and let me go do my job. Like that's all I care about. I mean, that's what I have here too with software. It's like, is that big of an ask? I think maybe it might be, but it shouldn't be, right? It should be very simple. But on the patient side, looking at your own practice, I think, again, very similar. Even here, we're like, listen, you cannot have a static record. You got to go. We cannot, you are an expense to us as a client. How do you get them out? Or how do you decide in that moment, like, this person doesn't want this and I'm going to let them not have it. Like, I'm okay with that. Let them bless and release. They're good to go. I don't want them here. They're not the right fit for my vibe. How do you do that in a way that's respectful, but also keep who you want in the clinic and who you don't want, kind of get them out?
I feel like I've been pretty fortunate in the caliber and the quality of clientele that I have had come through. Um, I think I've only maybe ever had to completely fire two or three clients over 8 years where I was legitimately just like, I'm absolutely not the right guy for you, but I wish you well. Um, I have had it's probably a more common scenario where I have a person come in and they'll tell me what they're looking for. I will make my recommendations. In some cases, I'll be like, I'm 100% against that decision. I don't think it's going to benefit you. Um, if you are absolutely convinced that that's what you want, and I feel like I can do it in a way that's still safe, then I'll do it for them. I'm like, I'll take your money. I'll do the work. I'm not going to post you on my Instagram because like I don't want that. I don't want to take credit for that right there. Don't tell people that you came here. I've done that, you know, one or two times, but most of the time, my clients are very reasonable people. So it's a rare occasion that I've actually had to. I mean, I will be 100% honest. I do believe in transparency, and I will tell people if I feel like I'm not going to be able to meet their expectation with the result. I will tell them I think the the amount that we sometimes either believe or as injectors say that we can lift the face with filler is probably a little bit overblown. Um, if they are, if you know, if they're doing this, if they're doing this, I'll be like, you need to go see the plastic surgeon, and here's three names that you should go have consultations with. I will gladly be 100% honest, even if it means sacrificing, you know, like a microneedle series or a laser series, because I promise them skin tightening or whatever. I know that if I take their money and I do those treatments and I don't deliver on the type of result that they're looking for, it's not going to benefit me in the end. And I'd rather just not have those headaches because I've been there before, and I think that's one thing that really only experience can teach you is when it's not the right move to only offer them the thing that you have. Because in the end, it's just going to bite you in the ass. They're going to come back. They're going to, you know, complain about you. They might write you a bad review. They might ask for their money back. It's not worth the headache. So I'm almost like overly honest about what I think certain treatments will do for them. And I try to under promise and over deliver and point them to the plastic surgeon as often as I think it's medically necessary to do such a thing. Um,
Well, I think too, you having 8 years in the business, you know, experience wise what to do. I think as a new business owner, I mean, 3 years in is pretty new. That's hard for people to do. Like they're concerned about the revenue leaving the front door. But I think if you don't set it up that way in the beginning, you attract people who you don't want long term. It's like when you're a startup, whatever you do in the first like 50 employees that you have, set your culture forever. Like you got to make hard choices in the beginning. You got to make the hard choices with patients in the beginning. Like you got to set the standard today of what you want your practice to be like when it's 6 times the size, you know, or it's, you know, or you're 15 years into this and you have 8 locations. I just think there's such a fundamental part of it when you're growing in the beginning that you've got to kind of get that set up. And so, you know, you're growing to your new location, and as you grow and you scale and you hire more people, if that's the standard, they'll all follow it, right? You're leading by example. And so I think people get distraught about the money's going to walk out of the front door. I'm like, yeah, but if it stays, do you really want it? Not all money is good money at the end of the day. Like there's some money I don't even want. Like keep your dollar bills in your pocket. I don't want them because it's just got too many strings attached, too many headaches. So kudos to you for being like, you know what? Don't come here. And I love the fact that you just don't put them on your Instagram. If I give you what you want, it's not what I want. Just don't put them on Instagram. I love that.
right, right.
Still do the
Well,
work.
I've always lived by two guiding principles, and that is number one, I'm not going to be concerned with what my competition is doing from a business standpoint, because you know here I am in I'm in a two single room salon suites, and there's literally two other injectors in my same building, and I'm like, if the hairstylists can all cohabitate and coexist next to each other, there's no reason why the injectors can't do the same. So I have never been concerned with, you know, the 10 med spas within a 2 mile radius of where I'm at. I think as injectors, we need to focus on being as amazing and awesome as we possibly can. And then just attracting the people that are meant for you. number one. And then number two, just being willing to do right by them. And the more that you do that, I think it just, I don't know, it's just one of those kind of karmic things that, if you put it out there to the universe, it's just going to eventually come back to you in better ways. You know what I mean?
I couldn't agree more. And we went from like a co-working space, so kind of like a solo salons, but for corporate people, and then to our own location. And I can tell you, it's a night and day difference. Like you got to kind of know who you are because when you are in the co-working space, the coffee is there already, the lights are on, the bills are paid, there's air conditioning, everything's done, right? You just kind of walk in and you roll. You walk in and put on the show. It is different money wise, but also effort wise. When you go into your own location, you start to kind of get that, like, I'll take whoever I can get. I got to pay the bills. So if you've already established that from the get go, when you go to that location and things are like on your plate and you're realizing, like, holy shit, being a landlord's a lot of work, you don't fall into those ways. Like, you don't get caught in that trap. And so I think, doing it now is great. And also, I'm sure that you've saved up a little bit of a nest egg because you haven't had all the chaos of being the single landlord of the building. But the big move, Chad, are you nervous about it to go to a new location and start? Obviously, a new address is a big deal, like having to switch everything over for your patients and like get a new clinic. That's just a lot of work on its own. But like the moving in and starting your own thing, your own building, are you super excited about that?
Yeah, I am very much excited about it. I'm excited to have room for activities, to quote Step Brothers, um, karate in the garage and all that. I'm gonna have four treatment rooms. I'm gonna have a nice big open lobby. I'm gonna spend the money to make the lobby just look absolutely stunning. You know what I mean? I wanted to kind of have that wow factor. Um, because as a creative, those are the things that I care about. I am also equally terrified because I will not be able to survive the way that I have survived up to this point. I will need additional staff. I will need to hire additional people. Um, Growth 99 guy, what's his name? Is it
Cameron,
just
Cameron.
Cameron, Mr. Snapback Hat.
Yep.
He he broke down the stages of growth very eloquently, and I think it was in his like second stage, which was like growth mode, where it's just like complete and total utter chaos. I resonated with that one very deeply. So a lot of times I feel like a chicken with my head cut off, but I'm looking forward to expanding my team and putting those key people in place to help me float the business and to handle the back end stuff that I either don't have the time to do or don't have the acumen to do. Like I said, I'm a creative type. Put me in front of a camera all day. I'll sit on your podcast all day long. Uh, I hate doing spreadsheets. I hate, doing purchase orders and bills and things like that. I just want to make Instagram videos and inject faces and make them look good.
But the key is knowing that. The key is knowing that that's not your skill set, or that's not what you like to do, and go hire someone who can do that for you. Because if they do their job well, you can go do your job well. That's the hardest thing, I think, when you're in a startup mode and growth mode, is like delegating to people what you don't want to do, and also being able to say it's worth the spend, because what they're going to give you back in time to do the things that you're good at will be exponential compared to the time to learn how to become an accountant and a human resources officer, and all the things you have to do to run a business. Like, it's just not humanly possible. So I think you're on the right track. And I think it'll be the lobby. I would do the same thing, because all the patient events, it's a calling card. When they bring their friends in as a referral, to walk into that and be like, oh, they sent me to the best place I could possibly go to. Look at this, the Taj Mahal. When it looks great, I think it just reaffirms people referring in their friends, but also just having a cool space. Like, I think it is the hair, right? It's the great hair on a great look. You got to have those little cherries on top. And I think a great lobby is one of them. So spend money on that.
Back to the whole brand identity thing. There's a lot in our industry. There's a lot of very medical looking white, a lot of high gloss finishes, especially down in Miami. It's either medical white or it's hyper feminine with just pinks and reds and like melting lips everywhere. Like look at like my friend Jessica Henderson Ree, Red Rabbit Aesthetics. It's just melting lips everywhere, and then random pictures of Snoop Dogg. Um, I'm sticking with a little bit more of a masculine vibe. So I mean, you can see behind me, my brand colors are black and gold. I've got or is it champagne bottles as decor. Oh, you can't see the one behind me there, but and then the idea of the Metatron cube. So it looks like a hexagon, but if you look at it the right way, it's actually a cube turned on its side, which I didn't even really realize that until one of my clients who's very much into the whole sacred geometry thing. She was like, "Oh, it's a Metatron cube," and I just love that idea, that symbol of the interconnectedness between the parts, the symmetry of it all, how one thing kind of affects and connects to the other. And that sort of fits my model of not just the aesthetics side, but the wellness side as well. Because I do very much, and you and I have talked about this a little bit, and I would love to get on stage, like maybe with like Stephen Soar at some point, because he's also very much in this vibe of the hormone balancing, the functional medicine piece, and how it actually, what the interplay of those things is with our aesthetic treatments and the way that it actually affects an aging face. You know what I mean? So I love all that stuff.
That's where I think we need to go as an industry. That's what we're missing is like if you do all these great things with all these injectables, but your inner core, your inner workings are not functional and they're not optimized, it doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't matter how good you look if if you're dead inside. I think there's a part of it, even with the sexual wellness revolution that's kind of everywhere right now. I think there's such a big connection there that the functional industry is like way bigger than we are. Obviously, they're like I don't know how much bigger, but a lot bigger than we are in aesthetics. But we're starting to tap into that, and that's like you want to make money. That's first of all a cash cow. Like all those things are recurring. You have to keep getting them over and over again. Testosterone, whatever it is. But the patient feels great. Now they look great. They're yours. Like they're not going to go anywhere else because all the things that they want to be when they grow up, you're able to provide for them. And so I just think we're not there yet, but hopefully we're getting there soon. And be the leader of that. Help us get there. You and Stephen Soar on stage doing it, I think would be phenomenal. It'd be a perfect combination.
Love it. Love Steven.
Well, we're going to roll off. Chad, anything you want to leave us with before you go, before we say goodbye?
Um, I guess I'll just give myself a shameless plug. If you don't follow the page already, go find me on Instagram at Needle Daddy and watch some of my ridiculous videos. If you're sad on a Monday and you need some cheering up.
Well, I would definitely say yes, go watch them. But guys, keep your eyes peeled for Icon Aesthetics and Wellness and for Needle Daddy. He's on the quick rise up. I'm sure I'll see you hopefully very, very soon. But you're doing really cool stuff, and I love watching your journey, and I just love that you are who you are, and you don't make any apology for that. So keep being you. We love it here. And I think some great advice today about being authentic, but also picking your people, picking your team, and staying true to who you are. So I appreciate your time so much.
Thanks for having me, Tiffany.
Well, I will see all you guys next week with another episode of For the Record. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of For the Record. This podcast is not intended to provide legal or medical advice. It's for entertainment, education, and information purposes only. For more information on this week's guest or to get started with Aesthetic Record, email us at info@aestheticrecord.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more fresh perspectives on disrupting the status quo and surviving in the aesthetics industry.